Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's the Ceremonial Witch back up in this bitch, and today I'm actually talking. Yesterday I put out an episode that I don't think I really talked much in. The day before that was mostly Russell Brand, but I gave it a little bit of feedback and input on my struggles on spirituality mixed with drugs and all that shit. But anyways, so yesterday's video was about I put on New Age shit that I listened to before. I kind of forgot about mentioning Ralph Smart. I mentioned Higher Self quite a few times, so I put a few videos on Higher Self. There was one gentleman on there, I couldn't remember his name. I think that was the only video I ever watched of him. It was one of the ones of my liked videos. Ralph Smart, for some reason, wasn't on my subscription list, and for some reason I totally forgot about him, but he was one of the people I listened to prior to Higher Self. I think I found my way to Higher Self. I don't know. I really don't know which one was first. It probably was Higher Self. I really do remember watching the Lightworker video before anything else. But anyways, today I am going to play some clips of stuff, but I only have, I think I have a half an hour one, a 10-minute one, and a 15-minute one. And they're generally about the same thing. One's a very spiritual view, one's a bunch of facts, and another one would be more like a fear-based media YouTube channels view. All these channels are on YouTube. It's about Agartha, or Hollow Earth, or Inner Earth. And the only reason I bring up that is because it's something I don't. It's kind of like fear-based media. It's kind of like conspiratorial shit. I don't really get involved in flat and globe Earth stuff. I do have an opinion on everything, obviously, and thoughts about everything, but I don't get involved because I don't believe in focusing on or arguing about something that we can never prove. We can always come up with evidence and then put our spin on it and add things and take things away, and you could come pretty damn close to probably proving, flat or not flat, chemtrails are happening or not, or satanic fucking Illuminati people are not, or symbols are bad or symbols are good. It doesn't matter at the end of the day. If you really can't prove it 100%, you know what I mean, then it doesn't matter. But I put this on here because it has to do with my beliefs that I talk about a bit, when I'm not trying to sell anybody on my beliefs, but it gives people a different perspective, especially being pagan and being very earth-based, being a very earth-based kind of religious view of things and how the earth is alive and reincarnation and things like that. The first one I'm going to play is a documentary on there, and I put the link to it actually in the description. The other two I did not. But the one guy, if you want to get anybody involved or trying to start on this path, how I said fear-based media is the first step. You have to first realize everything you learned is not really true. It doesn't matter whether it's the religious beliefs you're trying to get rid of or the monetary system. Someone doesn't have religious beliefs, but you got to get them looking at the stuff that shakes their foundation, breaks their programming, or confuses the fuck out of them. Like, what? Is this real? And if they actually do the research, they'll find out for the most part that most of the stuff kind of is real. But like I said already, most of the stuff you can't prove. But that is the point. To me, that's why there's so much of this going on, because there is supposed to be a grand awakening. It's going to fucking only get even more come 2020. So if you're already on the path, you're one of the lucky ones. Don't worry about if you haven't gotten into it sooner or you wish you had. None of that matters. You're into it now, and that's all that matters. But anyways, learning about Agartha, Inner Earth, is important because it's a good perception to have, perspective to have, and all that. Anyways, I want to talk about Ralph Smart, what he said. I want to relate empaths to talk about how Birch and Frederick Xavier, they may not believe in New Age stuff or like the New Age stuff, which, they only say New Age, and like Birch says New Age and Wicca happen too fast and people are too light in love, which is a very valid point. Frater says, a lot of the New Age stuff didn't happen, or truth is getting passed for New Age stuff. But to me, and I'll make my point, both those guys are both empaths. And anyone pretending to be an empath and who's using it to be above people, they're not actually an empath. And I'll get into all that and I'll break all that down. I'm also going to talk about, like I said, the reincarnation and the hierarchy, but keep in mind this is my opinion, but I will make my case as it's made in my head, and it's not necessarily exactly how it's going to happen, because I don't think we can honestly comprehend that. But our job here is to comprehend the nature and how everything works and how we're all connected and stuff like that, and that's how we go up. And it also has to do with the fear or love when you die and how that works and all that. So I'm going to talk about all that. I'm going to talk about astrology, where it has to do with empaths, how you can, because everybody Ralph Smart said yesterday that water signs are normally empaths, and anybody who's listened to me, or Birch, or Freighter, will know that in a birth chart you have all the signs. Everybody has a Pisces placement, a Scorpio placement, and a Cancer placement. There's your 3 water signs. Everybody has Jupiter and the Moon. There's your two water planets, unless you include Neptune, which would be the other one. I know I used to think Aquarius was a water sign, but it's actually air, believe it or not. Pisces is the water one, the fish one right beside Aquarius, I believe anyways. Earth, or fire, earth, air, water. So yeah. I'm gonna relate it to that. I'm gonna give you examples of Birch and Freighter and why they are the way they are. I'll tell you how I feel, how I know how things happen for me, and how to, if you don't think you're an empath, well, how to start having these things happen to you, because I've said it before recently enough. Anything you practice, you get better at. But not only that, everybody has these signs. Now, getting your birth chart is going to tell you, well, if all your water placements have planets in it, depending on the planet, it's going to be good or bad or okay. And, all that shit is kind of irrelevant. You get your chart, you see your water placements, and depending on the houses and the planets in there, but everybody has these abilities to a certain extent. Between your programming and what's going on in your chart, it might be really intense, it may not be. Point is, you can have thoughts, you can have pain, you can have feelings that aren't yours that you take on. And honestly, everybody needs to cleanse spiritually as much as they need to shower. They need to fix their energy and protect their energy just as much. And that's the one thing I'm going to talk about New Age, how there's not enough emphasis on protection and the bad things that can happen, because you deal with spirits and meditations and trances and sometimes rituals, but you're not doing all the stuff that our elders taught us we need to do for protection, so we can be 100% protected when we're there. Because, it's told that you light up the astral when you go in your circle and you go do the lesser banishing. So if someone's doing something similar to that and they don't have a circle, well, they're lighting up the astral without any fucking protection. And I don't care what your beliefs are, something bad's going to happen. So I'll keep that in mind. But anyways, I'm going to go to the first thing because it's going to relate to everything after that. And my screen's going fucking... little haywire. Hopefully I get through the episode. But anyways, I'm going to go to the first one right now for y'all. I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope you guys can hear it. I hope there's no issues. And yeah, I'll be back on in between this one. So I'm sorry, I said it was half an hour. It's actually 40 minutes long. But if I can speed it up, I will, okay? But anyways, enjoy. This is about Inner Earth, Hollow Earth, and this one's about a bunch of people that wrote things down that have actually explored it, about species of birds and animals and different people in time that have, so quote unquote, went there, and Indians that have been there, and it's as much proof as you can get from scientific fact to observing the other planets. And a whole bunch of other things, actually, there's nothing. I'm going to talk about CERN. I'm going to relate CERN to this hollow earth theory and stuff like that. Not relate, but just give you another little conspiratorial fucking thing you can chew on, maybe. But anyways, here we go.
Of Santa Claus. In fact, they support a theory. Did you know that before winter, millions of birds and insects in the most extreme latitudes fly not towards the equator, but towards the poles? And that those animals, when given tracking devices, lose their tracking signal? Did you know that mosquitoes in the northernmost landmass, Greenland, are so large and aggressive they can take out a caribou calf? And did you know that explorers at the South Pole have reported that after a certain latitude, the sub-zero temperatures suddenly rise dramatically, yielding green, iceless land areas and lakes? This strange evidence of warmer regions all indicate that the North and South Pole may hold secrets beyond the idea of Santa Claus. In fact, they support a theory about Earth that some of the most celebrated geologists and astronomers have believed, that Earth is a spherical, spacious planetary body with enormous, continent-sized caverns deep within it, and large entrances miles across at the North and South Pole. They say inner Earth has water, oceans, and luminosity, and that it sustains not only plants and animals, but intelligent life. If this sounds like heresy, lay aside what you think you know, and we'll show you the evidence, the scientists, the legends, and testimonies behind the inner Earth theory, so that you can see why it may be the most game-changing information ever concealed from common knowledge. That miles beneath your feet are ideal conditions for a life-sustaining and inhabitable inner Earth. Who wasn't taught that gravity is what makes an apple fall? We've believed this for roughly 300 or 400 years, since Isaac Newton defined it and its relationship to mass. Well, in 2017, two neutron stars collided and proved, indeed, it's not a force. It's actually a distortion in space-time. According to Einstein, an apple falls from a tree because the apple's responding to a curvature of space-time caused by the planet's mass. There's no attractive force called gravity. Fair to say, that's a massive paradigm shift. So, if we were wrong about gravity, could we be wrong about other theories, particularly those that involve it? How we measure Earth's mass. Today, the Cavendish experiment measures the mass of one object based on its tug to another. But even before the redefining of gravity, this theory had flaws. The gravitational conditions in a science lab are nothing like conditions in space, and the theory assumes that each particle exerts a fixed force upon all others, ruling out the very real possibility that particles near the surface of a planet might exert a force greater than those deep within it. So, if gravity is no longer a valid theory, and it's used to determine mass, and the mass of the Earth is overstated, then it follows that the masses of all other planets in the solar system are also overstated. If the Earth is cavernous or hollow, then so too is every other planet in the solar system. Some of the greatest scientific minds have challenged the theory of a dense Earth. Around the same time as Newton, geophysicist, mathematician, and astronomer Edmund Halley, who predicted the orbit of his comet, said the magnetic anomalies of the Earth could only be the result of a different composition. He believed that beneath the Earth's crust were two thick concentric shells, and that each region potentially had its own atmosphere, luminosity, and was possibly even inhabited. If this idea sounds crazy, check out this NASA video taken showing Saturn's North Pole, with the exact counter-rotating fields that Halley described. And in this rare NASA video of Jupiter's pole, you can count up to 15 of these counter-rotating cylinders. Halley also speculated that the poles would have access into Earth, and that the aurora borealis was the result of light emanating from this counter-rotation, exactly as it does in the videos of these other planets. Watch this NASA video closely, and you'll see that the Australis borealis appears to be clearly emanating from a dark point on the planet. If you overlay a map on the planet, it's exactly at the point of the South Pole. 100 years later, Swiss mathematician and physicist Leonhard Euler, who's still considered one of the greatest mathematicians of all time, also proposed that Earth was completely hollow, with a central sun in the center, similar to what Halley proposed, agreeing with Halley that holes at the North and South Pole would provide access to it. Germany's most influential mathematician, Johann Carl Friedrich Gauss, in the early 1800s, stated, "All of our Earth's history, physics, and geography could be explained by Earth being a hollow planet with entrances at the poles." Naturally, satellite images of the poles are going to disprove this craziness, right? Well, there's a problem. NASA's images and videos of poles are rare. They're hard to find. But when they are revealed, they often have cloud cover, ice cover, or questionable anomalies, like simply being blotted out. Stranger still, no planes or satellites are permitted to come within a certain distance of the poles. Well, in November 1968, a satellite photo of the North Pole was released. It showed a large polar opening in absence of cloud cover. Now, it's possible a trick of time-based photography created this illusion, but satellite images since then, showing serious anomalies, do raise questions, particularly the one from Russian space station Mir in 1987, showing light emanating in a very mysterious fashion. And then there are other NASA images of the planets: Venus, Jupiter, the various moons, all showing strange qualities or blotted out poles. In fact, how's it possible to have perfectly hexagonal angles on Saturn? Why do these images from space consistently have their poles concealed? Like this blotted one of Jupiter, where you can actually see light emanating from the center. Was Edgar Allan Poe correct when he said, "Sometimes the best hiding place is the one that's in plain sight"? Another anomaly in measuring Earth's mass happens when we study earthquakes. Since the early 1900s, seismograph readings have proved that Earth does have some density, but not without raising even more questions. You see, when an earthquake occurs, seismic waves are measurable as they spread, but then the signals disappear entirely, only to reappear further on. These shadow zones are believed to be the result of waves hitting a molten core, and there are complicated mathematics theorizing why. But even then, there are many inconsistencies with seismograph readings. It's not a tidy science. So with all things considered, could it be that the simplest solution is simply the accurate one? Is it possible the waves reverberate within a belt-like zone, but disappear into very large caverns or underground seas, miles beneath the Earth's outer crust? Would that just be too simple an explanation? If the possibility of inner oceans sounds strange, take note. The first of the deepest holes ever drilled into Earth was in Russia, beginning in 1970. It was called the Kola Super Deep Borehole, and it took 20 years to make. As is often the case when humans venture into the unknown, Kola left a few scientific theories in ruin. They discovered unprecedented heat, fossils at depths 8 miles down, and the surprising result? Water, at far deeper depths than had previously been assumed. Then, in 2014, a team of 20 U.S. geophysicists using seismic readings discovered large bodies of water 400 miles into the Earth. They concluded that the mantle transition zone, a rock layer between 400 and 700 kilometers below the Earth's surface, could hold 3 times the amount of water in the world's oceans. One of the team's scientists said, "This is direct evidence supporting the hypothesis that the deep Earth holds a lot of water." Modern science can't confirm the physical structure of Earth's interior as a fact, and there are many questions about the existing theory. For example, a forming planet has zero gravity in its center, so its mass accumulates where gravitational and centrifugal forces are balanced, creating a sphere with openings at the top and bottom, like a hurricane of matter in space, not as a solid body. This energetic flow, the torus, is a self-organizing system in nature where energy expands and returns to itself. We see it every day in an orange, a whirlpool, a tornado. It's in the atom, the galaxy. None of these is a dense system. So, let's consider another possibility. Over millions of years, the planet has succumbed to a combination of forces responsible for shaping it: heating, cooling, convection, carving by lava, running water, and glaciers, but also centrifugal forces, which create inner spaces in a mass revolving on an axis. These natural forces could make a planet more like a honeycomb or Swiss cheese than a perfectly solid rock. So current models of Earth's interior are not fact, they're theories. In the meantime, look at the facts you do know. Every continent has extensive cavernous networks, like Son Doong Cave in Vietnam, with its jungles, rivers, and space to fit a 40-story skyscraper. And there's Mammoth Cave in Kentucky, USA, which is even longer than the 400 miles of it which have so far been explored. Who's to say these spectacular naturally occurring spaces are not found at deeper depths? According to laws of physics, empty spaces are unnatural in nature. So caves have their own ecosystems and water bodies, plant life, animal life. If they extend deep into the earth, life will still fill it. Even the most unhospitable depths of the ocean have life forms and creatures that have adapted to the darkness by creating their own luminosity. As Aristotle said, nature abhors a vacuum. Wherever there is a void, the universe seeks to fill it. So if enormous caverns like those we already know of continue on to reach deep into the earth, what then could be residing in the space miles beneath our feet? Since we're prohibited from flying over or seeing the poles, and we're prohibited from exploring caves without permits or assigned guides, how might we know what exists in inner Earth? Interestingly enough, many of the accounts of this strange, unique land have been told by very respected, credible people. But first, let's look at history. Almost every ancient culture shares legends about interactions with subterranean races. Clearly, some of these are considered to be purgatory for sinners, attempts to deter people from wrongdoing. But other legends, those about Agartha, with its cities Shambhala and Potala, have striking resemblances, no matter which continent they originate from. In all legends, these civilizations tell of two beings, very tall giants or very advanced reptilian races. The word Agartha is of Buddhist origin. True Buddhists fervently believe in this subterranean empire, which they say has millions of inhabitants and many cities, including the capital, Shambhala, where a supreme ruler dwells. They believe the Dalai Lama is his terrestrial representative, and his messages are transmitted to the lamas in Tibet. They believe that they've been there for thousands of years, sheltering humanity since the terrestrial cataclysms. The Russian artist, philosopher, and explorer Nicholas Roerich published that a Tibetan Lama revealed the capital of Tibet was connected by a tunnel with Shambhala, the heart of the subterranean empire of Agartha, and that the entrance of this tunnel was guarded by lamas who were sworn to keep its actual whereabouts a secret from outsiders. Those who are led through this underground passage travel deep into earth through areas where it becomes so narrow it can be difficult to pass through. According to Tibetans, Shambhala is a physical place, but one that also has an ethereal nature, given its location inside this holistic, evolving planet. Given our understanding of how matter can be warped in space and time by mass, this could make sense. One Gnostic scholar explains the underworld as a plane between spirit and our reality, an area where the ethers of spirit become nature, and nature returns back to spirit, making it both a physical and an apparitional realm. In the ancient epic poem, the Mahabharata, the Hindus also spoke of Aryavarta, the abode of the excellent ones, which was said to be ruled by a supernal race, the Nagas, a half-human, half-reptilian species depicted with jeweled hoods that light their realm. It's said the Nagas possessed cutting-edge technology and had an unpredictable and sometimes merciless nature, known to abduct and torture humans, while at other times influencing positive events on Earth. It's also said they inhabited Patala. Perhaps it's not coincidence, then. The name of the palace where the lamas guarded the tunnel entrances is the Potala Palace. It also raises questions about the motivation the Chinese government had when they violently overthrew Tibet's peaceful leaders in the 1950s, in a coup which may have cost up to 1 million Tibetan lives. Another Indian epic, the Ramayana, tells the story of the great avatar Rama, a blue-skinned emissary from Agartha who arrived on an air vehicle. These air vehicles were called Vimanas, which means car or chariot of the gods, carrying its occupant through the air. Strangely, flying airships have remained a consistent part of all Inner-Earth stories, every one of them. In Africa, a similar tunnel was believed to connect the secret chambers at the base of the Pyramid of Giza with the subterranean world, by which the pharaohs established contact with the gods of the underworld. Ancient Egyptian deities like Ra, Thoth, Anubis had qualities unlike humans: unique height, skin coloring, eyes, often avian or bird-like heads. Another mystery occurred in 985 AD, when the Viking explorer Eric the Red discovered Greenland. By 1410, there was anywhere from 10,000 to 100,000 Viking colonists on Greenland's shores. That was the last date, however, that any one of the Viking settlers of Greenland was ever seen again. All of their villages were found abandoned, and their disappearance has become one of the largest unsolved mysteries in our recent history. That is, unless you ask the native people of Greenland, the Inuits. According to these Eskimos, the white men swarmed suddenly northwards to a wonderland, land where the sun and where the light was more like twilight, saying they'd become lost when they followed their cattle into a cave, eventually emerging onto the bright landscape. In the 1908 book, The Smoky God, Willis George Emerson tells the story of Olaf Jensen's incredible journey to Agartha and the 2 years he spent living there with his father. Jensen and his father were traveling in their small fishing boat in an attempt to find the land beyond the north wind, when a windstorm carried them through a polar opening into the interior of the earth. There, they met who he called the Elder Race, friendly, intelligent, lanky, 12-foot giants. He said later they were able to grow tall in this unique electrical energy field that was always there inside the earth, and that these giants were able to live up to 800 years. Jensen described the inner world as warm, where it rained once a day and was filled with highly charged electrical air. There's a density to the atmosphere, he said, and this is what he believes led to the immense vegetation there. The title of the book, Smoky God, refers to the inner world's glowing and smoky sun. Most interesting was his explanation of these fast, noiseless, flying objects on which he rode. He said they had revolving fan-like wheels, which destroyed atmospheric pressure, or what he called gravitation, and this force prevented them from falling to one side or the other. After spending 2 years with these beings in Agartha, Olaf and his father attempted to return through the opening. On the journey home, however, his father lost his life when an iceberg destroyed their boat. Jensen was later rescued by some fishermen. But when he shared his incredible story, they placed him in a madhouse for the mentally insane, where, sadly, he remained for 28 years. Not until he was 90 years old did he share the story of his life's journey with Emerson, giving him maps of the interior of the earth, along with the manuscript of his experiences. Around the same time in 1895, the Nobel Prize laureate and Norwegian explorer Dr. Fridtjof Nansen set on an expedition to reach the North Pole. Nansen completely lost his bearings, admitting he couldn't identify the mysterious land which he found, and that lands marked on the map of one of the best-known explorers simply did not exist. He had many unusual things happen, noting that after bitter cold, suddenly the temperature began to rise, and it even became unbearably hot. It was never made clear where Hansen was exactly, but as the expression goes, he was not in Kansas anymore. Deep in the Amazon jungle, the ancient Makushi Indians have remained isolated from advanced civilizations until very recently. They're said to be the guardians of an entrance to inner Earth, and they describe the journey and the beings in vivid detail. They say for 15 days you must traverse through caverns until balls of bright light and glowing discs appear inside the Earth. There, a civilization of very tall beings, 12 to 15 feet, live inside a lush ecosystem of vegetation. This primitive culture also describes how they encounter molten rock at deep depths. Without any modern education, how could they know such detail unless there was some truth to their story? After the First World War, a German occultist group founded the Thule Society to pursue paranormal sciences. They publicized the Tibetan legends about openings into the earth, and they became obsessed with finding these entrances, with German emissaries even visiting Tibet. This group later endorsed what became the Nazis. As the Third Reich grew in military superiority and geographical dominance, Hitler ordered a team of researchers to find an inner Earth opening in Antarctica. Later, a German U-boat commanded by Heinrich Broden claimed that they had reached the interior of the Earth and even stated that they didn't want to come back, adding, "The Earth is, in fact, hollow." A diagram of Agartha was then drawn by a German scientist in 1935 in corroboration with the U-boat navigator. These stories are backed up by maps made for the National Geographic Society in 1966 by the famous cartographer Henrik Behren. In that map, Antarctica can be observed without its thick layer of ice. But the most interesting detail on the map are the underwater passageways spanning across the entire continent, which appear to converge at the exact location identified as the opening into inner Earth. And then there's the disturbing part of this legend, that Hitler and many of his minions escaped Germany in the closing days of World War II and fled to Antarctica, where they escaped into the Earth's interior. For it was after the war the Allies discovered that more than 2,000 scientists from Germany and Italy, along with almost 1 million people, had vanished. According to the Hollow Earth Research Society in Canada, this entire culture still resides there. Of course, they were not all Nazis, but for those guilty of heinous war crimes, a higher power will have to administer justice. No investigation of inner Earth is complete without the unique story relayed by the pioneering American aviator Admiral Richard Byrd Jr., who led numerous expeditions to both poles and wrote detailed logs about his journeys.
My man, Admiral Byrd.
What stands out about Byrd's story, however, was the personal diary his son published following his death. In this document, he gives vivid details about his expedition to the North Pole in 1947, the geographical anomalies he witnessed, which he couldn't make sense of, being met by unfamiliar flying craft, which assumed control of his plane, and then literally being taken to their leader, the master of the inner Earth civilization. Before you write this story off, it's important to understand the man who wrote it, and to examine his behavior while he was alive. Richard Byrd was one of the most highly decorated officers in military history. Among these was the Medal of Honor, the highest medal given by the United States for valor. He fought for the Allies in both World Wars and led 2 huge military expeditions to Antarctica following World War II. He was an efficient, concise leader, and every trip he made, he kept detailed logs of just facts. He was not a poet or a storyteller. The idea a man of this rank and stature would fabricate stories is unimaginable. You only need to see Byrd in his documentaries or read his writings to see that he sought to live with integrity, that he understood the responsibility of his words and choices on the lives of those reporting to him and to the nation that he served. So when Byrd returned from his travels and was interviewed on the Longines Chronicles on live TV in 1954, the hyperbolic statements he made were, and still are, somewhat confusing and mysterious. He said things like, "I'd like to see the land beyond the pole." Now, he didn't say to, around, or near it. He called it the land of everlasting mystery, the most peaceful place in the world, and a vast new territory not on any map. He said it was an area as big as the U.S., never seen by a human being, and the most valuable and important place left in the world for science. Prior to another expedition, he said, "This is the most important expedition in the history of the world." And the one he repeated the most was, "It's the center of the great unknown." These are mysterious when you consider that he's referring to either a large mass of ice or a land mass covered with ice. Even if he were speaking of the military significance of this place, to call it peaceful and mysterious are hardly the words of a strategizing military officer. So we must conclude that as one of the nation's highest-ranking military leaders, he was also sworn to secrecy. These statements raise the question, was Byrd upholding his vow to secrecy for national security while being just truthful enough to share information that would allow him to abide by his principles of integrity? In February of 1947, Byrd, the one man who has done the most to make the North Pole a known area, made the following statement: "I'd like to see the land beyond the pole, the center of the great unknown." Millions of people read this statement in their newspapers or heard it on the radio broadcast. Did they look at their globes? What land was he talking about? If you look at the map, calculate the distance from all the known lands near it, and none of them are within 200 miles of the pole. In fact, Byrd himself called it no known land, that after 1,700 miles, he said he hadn't reached the end of it. He should have been back to civilization, right? But he wasn't. He should have seen nothing but ice-covered ocean, or at the very most, partially open ocean. Instead, he was flying over green, lush areas, including lakes and mountains. It was already published that he had discovered 2 unknown land areas, measuring a total of 4,000 miles across, and yet, instead of receiving notoriety like Christopher Columbus, his story disappeared. Was Byrd trying to say what he knew without revealing it outright? Was anybody paying attention? To add to this confusion, in 1956, the editor of Flying Saucer magazine, Ray Palmer, wrote a detailed story on Byrd's discoveries. Apparently, however, as the issue headed to press, they mysteriously disappeared, and strangely, the printing plates were found badly damaged, so a reprint couldn't be done. Some other interesting, indisputable facts about the time were that, up to this point, there had been a few books published about the North Pole having entrances into the Earth. Another thing was that Byrd was accused of lying in effort to receive credit for being the first person to the North Pole, an accusation that seems somewhat inconsistent with a man of his character. Another thing that Byrd shared was that the poles are concave, not convex as thought, and that the South Pole is 10,000 feet high, whereas the North Pole is 10,000 feet low. It was well documented that there was a large spike in temperature as he approached the pole. But one of the biggest mysteries involving Byrd may have happened right after World War II with Operation High Jump. While it was said at the time it was an expedition to Antarctica to find coal and other resources, that story later changed to training military personnel and establishing a research base. In the meantime, you can't help but wonder why either mission would require 33 aircraft, 13 Navy ships, and almost 5,000 soldiers, and mysteriously result in loss of lives. Leaks later revealed that the true mission was to retrieve the missing Nazi leaders from their refuge in Antarctica. But Byrd cut the 8-month mission short after what the Chilean press reported as troubles with many fatalities, though the event was clearly downplayed in the U.S. Following a military-aided evacuation, the force returned. Their stories immediately became classified as top secret, but inevitable leaks revealed that there were attacks by highly advanced saucer-shaped airships. The Secretary of the Navy, by this time the Secretary of Defense, James Forrestal, started to talk. President Truman forced him to resign, and he was soon taken to Bethesda Naval Hospital's psychiatric ward, where he was prevented from seeing or talking to anyone, including his own wife. When this high-ranking man was found dead, of course, it was ruled a suicide. Case closed. Another strange thing is in 1947, following the sudden end of his military expedition, Byrd spoke with a reporter for the Chilean newspaper El Mercurio and told him that he didn't want to frighten anyone unduly, but that it was a bitter reality that in the case of a new war, the continental U.S. would be attacked by flying objects which could fly from pole to pole at incredible speeds. This is where Byrd's posthumous diary comes in. Though he remained faithfully silent, albeit mysterious, shortly after his death, his son published his diary to reveal a very different account than what the public had been told. It started like this. I must write this diary in secrecy and obscurity. It concerns my Arctic flight on the 19th day of February in the year of 1947. There comes a time when the rationality of men must fade into insignificance, and one must accept the unavailability of the truth. I am not at liberty to disclose the following documentation of this writing.
Bless Admiral Byrd.
Perhaps it shall never see the light of public scrutiny, but I must do my duty here for all to read one day. Hopefully, the greed and exploitation of certain of mankind can no longer suppress that which is truth. Byrd then continued to unveil a picture that we had not imagined in this diary. He said that he traveled 1,700 miles on this journey, and he was so surprised when ice below gave way to lush green forests, lakes, rivers, and mountains. He saw animal life, and to his dismay, realized he was looking at a large mammoth that resembled those now extinct. He noted that everything had
It's a whole new
unique
twist
and
on the movie
inexplicable
Ice
color.
Age.
And suddenly he realized in shock that there were some kind of space vehicles
Especially
flying
one where they
beside
go
him.
into the Earth
They
to
escorted him,
get away from the
and he
meteor.
saw an entire
Or
city,
that's the fourth one. The
and was
third one, they
safely
go in the air.
landed,
The dinosaurs went in
despite
the
the
Earth
fact
too.
he had no control
Get
over
saved.
his plane. Once there, he was graciously greeted by civilians, and they called this place Agartha. Byrd's dismay upon arrival is clear. He and his crew were then taken to meet what they were told was the ruler of Agartha, the master, whom he described as delicate and ancient. They were told they'd been allowed to enter, despite these invisible barriers, because of his high moral and ethical character. The ruler went on to say that ever since the U.S. had dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, their race had been very concerned for human safety and the survival of the planet. When they intervened, however, their craft had been attacked by our militaries, and Byrd was asked to share this message and warning to civilization. Their hosts then guided them to their plane and back to the outer world. In closing, Byrd said he briefed the Pentagon of his message from the master, was interviewed intently by top security forces and a medical team, and ordered to remain silent in regard to all that he learned on behalf of humanity. Incredible is all he could call it. He concluded, I'm reminded that I am a military man and I must obey orders. 10 years later, he wrote a final entry. These last few years elapsed since 1947 have not been kind. I must state that I have faithfully kept this matter secret as directed all these years. It's been completely against my values of moral right. Now, I seem to sense the long night coming on, and this secret will not die with me. But as all truth shall, it will triumph, and so it shall. This can be the only hope for mankind. I've seen the truth, and it has quickened my spirit, and has set me free. I've done my duty towards the monstrous military-industrial complex. Now, the long night begins to approach, but there shall be no end. Just as the long night of the Arctic ends, the brilliant sunshine of truth shall come again, and those who are of darkness shall fall in its light. For I have seen that land beyond the pole, that center of the great unknown. Needless to say, this is an extraordinary story from an extraordinary man. Would Bird's own son publish false information that would defame his beloved father? Or did Bird himself falsify all this story in order to make a cruel joke of his life and legacy? Whether or not you believe this story, his influence, moral stature, and valor can hardly be argued. The esoteric Tibetan teacher, Jual Ku, or DK, during life channeled information from his location in Tibet to Alice Bailey in the United States, whom he later met personally. Even after his death, Bailey continued to receive information from this enlightened spiritual teacher, called the Messenger of the Masters, committed to world service in the healing of humanity. DK confirmed that Bird did indeed travel to inner Earth as he claimed, that there's a sun there, but not like our outer sun. He said that the aurora borealis was not caused by this, but by a different light source, and that the openings at the poles were very wide and ships and planes could fly into it. However, a yet unknown energy field will camouflage it and naturally protect it. He confirmed that there were entrances to the inner Earth in Egypt, Tibet, and the Yucatan, and also added that there were other entrances in the Bermuda Triangle, the Soviet Union, and Africa. He said that there were different races in the inner Earth, just like on the surface, and some of them quite tall. He also confirmed the U.S. government and other countries are aware of the inner Earth and are covering up the fact as they are the UFOs and extraterrestrials. Another man, Dallas Thompson, appeared on Coast to Coast Radio. He was a personal trainer in California who, during an out-of-body death experience, had revelations of inner Earth. After his recovery, he became an avid researcher, intending to find and travel the hole that Bird said to have entered at the North Pole. In 2003, after months of planning, however, he mysteriously disappeared. Finally, the most notable whistleblower of the secret space program, Corey Goode, has given consistent and extensive details on inner Earth. Among his claims are that there is a huge population currently living in Antarctica, that the United States is not the only nation that's created underground bases that are inhabited by thousands of people. Corey Goode has shared that the Mayans were not defeated, but in fact retreated to the inner Earth. He claims that the Mayans have crafts which appear to be rock, but they look like long cigars, cylindrical in shape. Goode's description of the Mayan craft are not unlike this one, which entered our solar system from a distant galaxy not long ago, and has since been recorded as speeding up. He also notes that there are many people channeling what they believe are Pleiadians, but those are in fact inner Earth beings protecting their location by claiming to be off the planet. Goode also said that disclosure will be an earth-shattering event, but a necessary one, and he implores everyone to see the Earth as a maternal living thing, inviting us to seek a deeper relationship with our planet. In our drive for power, resources, and control, we've become disconnected and impartial to the effects our choices have on the balance of nature. In conclusion, perhaps you hear these stories and can only hear legend. They're just too fantastical to be true. Suspend your disbelief for a moment, however. And other tales start to make more sense. The explanation of Earth's strange magnetic anomalies and its shadow zones. It explains the thousands of mysterious crafts, including the many which have been witnessed shutting down nuclear weapons. That they could be right under our feet, not coming from some distant place in space. It explains the obsession with Antarctica and the complete denial by governments of all unidentified flying objects. It explains the omission of the poles in satellite pictures. In conclusion, perhaps you hear these stories and can only hear legend.
This planet that we live in, folks, is a strange planet indeed. And it is only strange due to our lack of knowledge and understanding of it. Think about it. We live on a planet that is over 75% water, and the majority of those waters have been left unexplored. Why? There are several land masses that many people still to this day don't even know exist. Why? Because the money that is needed to openly explore these regions of our planet is all put into the exploration of regions outside our planet. I mean, NASA was just approved for a multi-billion-dollar project to take a trip to Mars. Mars, folks. Honestly, with everything we are facing in our world today, do any of you really give a crap about what's going on with Mars? Maybe all this space exploration is funded in order to keep us away from exploring remote locations on our planet. Well, as history shows us, lack of funding doesn't stop people from the exploration of truth. It just limits them. Which brings us to the discovery of a possible truth that is beyond strange and beyond our comprehension. So here we go, folks. Hollow Earth. So, right now, there are two major ideas, or concepts, behind the Hollow Earth theory. There is also a third theory which suggests that our planet may not be the spherical shape that we always known it to be. That is another video. Now, the first idea or concept or layer to Hollow Earth has to do with something that we really know is fact. We all know that there are holes or pockets within the Earth's crust. There are caves, ground bases, and maybe even cities. Aside from the holes we create, the majority of natural underground caves remain unexplored. Because quite frankly, you have to be nuts to explore them, and get other people to explore them with you. Which brings me to the second concept, the deep layer to the Hollow Earth theory, which is an ancient theory, by the way. But I want to start with Admiral Byrd. Now, here's a true nut, folks. And I'm not saying nuts in the sense that he was crazy. I'm saying nuts in the sense that this guy had a lot of balls. Him and his co-pilot, Floyd Bennett. So, what they did is they flew a 1920s aircraft up and into the North Pole. This takes a very skilled and talented pilot, because nobody is pulling it off today without an advanced military jet. This expedition with two people still remains questionable to this day, not because of what they didn't find up there, but because of what they did find. Lush vegetation. Not little patches of it, but valleys, mountains, and rolling green hills, as he describes in his diary, which we don't know is real because Bird is not here to tell us that it is, and wasn't here when the diary was released. But even if no one believed his story about the North Pole, then why was he sent to find vast resources at the South Pole? Now, understand, folks, that you can't just get up and go to the North and South Poles, and it's not just as simple as flying there, especially the South Pole where you have an ice barrier, a virtual wall of wind, snow, and ice, something you may only be able to drive through with a tank. Now, we can assume that there is land underneath the large ice sheets of the North and South Poles, but green, lush valleys and rivers and hills and mountains? We're talking about a lost world here. But is it really that inconceivable? Did you know that there is a bird, a small bird, called a Ross's gull? It is a type of seabird. What's significant about this bird is that it's been known to fly north for the winter, and their breeding sites are extremely difficult to locate. In other words, they don't really know where these birds go when they fly into the Arctic and come back with kids. So, you have to ask yourself, how does a bird who's built like this survive the deep Arctic in the winter months? Speaking of birds, Admiral Byrd goes on in his diary to describe his accounts of inner Earth, or hollow Earth. Now, I'm not going to tell you what he said, because it's way out there, folks. But I'm going to tell you how this hollow Earth works. So I want you to use your imagination here for a moment. Let's just say that, for the sake of the argument, the Earth is round. I know some of you are going to be like, it's flat! It's flat, goddammit! And I'm going to get to that, trust me. I am. But for now, in order to understand this, I need you to pretend that the Earth is round. Now, we've all been taught that the Earth consists of 4 layers: the crust, the mantle, the outer core, and the inner core. The crust is what we have studied the most, so it is the part of the Earth that we have the most information on. Now, the crust is very thin. It's been estimated to be between 3 and 5 miles thick underneath the ocean floor, and about 5 to 25 miles thick from the surface to the mantle. Then you've got about a good 1,800 miles of mantle. Then the outer core, another 1,400 miles, and then you have the inner core, which is about 800 miles across. Now, we know that the core is actually solid iron and a little nickel, but mostly a spinning ball of iron that spins in the opposite direction of the crust. Now, modern discoveries suggest that this core is not like some spinning molten fireball in the center of the Earth, but a solid form of iron that emits a type of light energy. Not like the radiation we get from the sun, but the energy that it emits seems to mimic the sun. Now, if you've ever seen an ultrasound performed on a pregnant woman, you know that they use sound waves through a probe to get images. And this is what they have done to the Earth, using satellites. Some of the images produced, however, have been very difficult to explain, and some scientists have done their math and suggested that there is actually space between the core and perhaps the mantle. Are you with me so far? If that's true, then that would mean that the Earth would have a second crust, an inner crust. And in between these 2 layers of crust would be the mantle and magma which also means that gravity is not in the core, but in the crust. So, if all these things are true, then yes, it makes sense that life could exist on this inner crust, with the core acting as an inner sun. All the elements that are needed for life are there. People are still trying to look for these holes at the North and South Poles. Adolf Hitler was actually obsessed with finding Hollow Earth through the South Pole. But doing this costs a lot of money, folks. Even if you find the hole, who's going to make the trip through it? To find out if there's some allegedly beautiful, perfect world when you come out the other end. Who's willingly going to go through a big, dark, black hole in the earth? Well, I guess there are a few people who would. All I know is, I'm not going to Hollow Earth anytime soon. And I'm pretty sure neither will any of you. Don't worry, folks. I don't think that the people of Hollow Earth like us anyways.
For all who walks upon the road that leads to the blessed lands, be warned. Once you enter this domain, you may not return to this world again. The holy invisible world for which you seek is simply a step away from where you are standing right.
Distinguished companion to the world-honored Longines. Good evening, this is Frank Knight. May I introduce our co-editors for this edition of the Longines Chronoscope? Larry Lasser, CBS News correspondent, and Kenneth Crawford, National Affairs Editor of Newsweek magazine. Our very distinguished guest for this evening is Admiral Richard E. Byrd.
The North Pole used to be a no man's land, but these are the days when, by buying a ticket on a commercial airliner, you can fly across the North Pole and drink a cocktail at the same time. Yet only 60 or more years ago, about 35 years ago, our guest tonight found out whether there was any land north of the North American continent. He made that first discovery flight, and I must say that Admiral Byrd, our guest tonight, is not only our greatest living explorer, but he's been an inspiration to countless Americans. Admiral Byrd, you've been to both the North Pole and the South Pole. Is there any unexplored land left on this earth that might appeal to adventurous young Americans?
Yes, there is. And not up around the North Pole, because it's getting crowded up there now, because they find out it's really usable, not only to live in, but militarily. But strangely enough, there's left in the world today an area as big as the United States that's never been seen by a human being. And that's beyond the pole, on the other side of the South Pole, from Middle America. And I think it's quite astonishing that there should be an area as big as that unexplored.
This is a tremendous
So
challenge.
there's a lot of adventure left down at the bottom of the world.
Admiral, do you hope to see that?
I do.
Well, Admiral,
Yeah.
would you say that since you've been to both the extremities of Earth, are these expeditions to such far-off places, are they getting easier because of modern techniques, or is danger still close at hand?
Well, it's a little risky, but nothing like it used to be with the old slow planes and the small cruising radius where we had to put down bases. We replaced the dog teams, and of course that was a big improvement. But now the planes go much faster and they are safer, and they have a much bigger cruising radius. You haven't got the danger of a terribly heavy load.
Admiral, an expedition to which I believe you're the advisor is now en route. What is that expedition doing?
Well, that's the icebreaker Atka, and it's a reconnaissance expedition. It's going down to the South Pole area to make certain observations and to look for some bases. They will be back in April, and they will report back, and upon the information we get from that undertaking, we will base the bigger expedition that's to follow.
Is that very definitely planned, or is that...
That is being planned right now. So I'm willing to say to you that there will be a number of expeditions that will follow, I think, year after year, to the bottom of the world, because the government has really become interested.
Well, Admiral Byrd, I can understand. I think everybody can, the interest in the North Pole, because it's so near our greatest challenger, Soviet Russia. But why this interest in the bottom of the world? Nobody living down there, is there?
No, it's pretty cold. There's only one permanent resident, that's the emperor penguin. The little ones live further north. I tell you one reason they're interested. It's by far the most valuable, important place left in the world for science. That's why the scientific groups all over the nation are really interested. But more important than that, it has to do with the future of the nation, those to come after us, or even during your lifetime. Because it happens to be an untouched reservoir of natural resources. And, as the world shrinks with an ever-increasing acceleration, far-flung places, once useless, like we thought the North Pole was, and no man's land, become very useful. The bottom of the world will be important, not only to us, but to our allies.
I was going to ask you, does it have military importance?
It has some, and as the world shrinks, it will continue to shrink with an ever-increasing acceleration, thus bringing these places closer. And in the future, I can see a time when it will be very, very important strategically.
Well, has the development of air power increased the strategic importance of places like the
very much
Parma
so.
Peninsula, was that?
Very much so. Even now, if anything happened and we lost the Panama Canal, we would have to control the islands just north of Antarctica, which are part of Antarctica. Then between there and Cape Horn.
I've heard it said that there are 7 continents in the world, and one of them has never been seen by a woman, and that's Antarctica. Is that actually true?
Well, if the Palm Peninsula is an island, as far as I know, that's true. No woman's ever stepped foot upon the Antarctic continent, and it's the most peaceful place in the world.
Well, I'm sure that won't last very long. I understand that now that you're working with the Arnold Bread Company in charge of frozen foods. Now, is there any future for frozen foods down these frozen extremities?
Well, I think the human race can be helped by that. This was thought out by Dean Arnold, who's, in my opinion, the great humanitarian. He learned that we went down there after 4 or 5 years and finished a meal that we had left there on the table when we had evacuated Little America. Everything was perfect, including the bread. So he got the idea of this frozen bread. And already he sent some to Europe, and just worked very well over there for some of the starving people. So you can store it down to the Antarctic, and against the lean years, and you wouldn't have any people in the world really starving if you did that.
So in the event of an atomic war...
You stay there forever.
Admiral, you speak of the resources of Antarctica. What are they? What are the natural resources there?
Well, we've found enough coal within 180 miles of the South Pole in a great ridge of mountains. It's not covered with snow, enough to supply the whole world for quite a while.
Well,
that's the coal. Now, there's evidence of many other minerals. We are pretty sure there's oil. Now, that coal shows the bottom of the world. Now, by far, the coldest spot in the world. Where that coal is gets 100 below zero in the winter.
Well,
it was once tropical. So we think there's oil there, and there's evidence, probably uranium there.
Is it any secret? Is there uranium there? That would be the only thing that would be practical to actually go after, I suppose. Everything else would be economically unfeasible, wouldn't it?
Well, as we recklessly expend our resources, the time will come, and we'll have to go after that stuff down there. Well, I avoided what you said about uranium. I'm not sure about that. I don't want to have the world fighting over the Antarctic.
Robert, is there a competition among other nations to try to get information about Antarctica and possibly to secure some of these resources?
Well, yes. There are now 7 nations very much interested. Russia is interested tremendously. That I am sure of. Australia has an expedition down there. The Argentine, the Chile, New Zealand, Britain, and so on. Now, you can understand those people down there being interested because they live down there. The New Zealanders, the Argentinians, the Chileans, and the Australians. And so we don't do much about claiming anything.
Admiral, you make this sound a little crowded. Are there that many expeditions now there or en route there?
Well, you know, as I said, it's the most peaceful place in the world, but I don't think it will be for long because of this intense interest on the part of other nations and this nation.
But Admiral Byrd, are private expeditions a thing of the past? Is expedition and exploration, making expedition and exploration now purely a government function because of the tremendous
No, I don't think so. I think down south it may be more or less a thing of the past, but not other expeditions that go. There's a lot of them go north now.
This latest expedition now on the way is a government expedition, I take it.
Yes, that's the government.
Admiral Byrd, may I ask you, is there a great difference between the top of the world and the bottom of the world?
There is. Now, the North Pole is the center of an ocean 10,000 feet deep. The South Pole, the center of a plateau 10,000 feet high. The North Polar Sea is surrounded by continents slightly frozen. The Antarctic continent is surrounded by a belt of ice, frozen seas of at least 1,200 miles thick. Now, the south is a plateau. It gets, in some places, 14,000 feet up. I've been over areas about 13,000. And it's a little bit chilly up there. So there's that big difference between the top and bottom of the world. The North really isn't very cold up there on the Arctic Ocean.
Compared to South. Admiral Byrd, we often hear it said that our young Americans now aren't as hardy as their forefathers. Do you think that Americans do measure up to the standards, the physical standards and morale standards of the past?
I do. I don't believe that. I think they're just as hardy.
Well, what would you say was the most valuable factor on an expedition? Is it morale, or physical courage, or is it sheer equipment?
Well, I've always thought that loyalty was by far the most important trait. The British told me that when I first went down in 28 that I couldn't possibly get through the winter night without a mutiny if I took more than 20 men. But to serve science, I had to take 42 men. Then I took 56 the next time, and so on. And I did find that loyalty was the most important thing during the winter night when it's very hard on your nerves. I think that's best trait.
That's a very valuable characteristic at any time. Well, thank you very much, Admiral Byrd. It's been a great pleasure to have you here tonight.
It's a pleasure to be with you.
The opinions expressed on the Longines Chronoscope were those of the speakers. The editorial board for this edition of the Longines Chronoscope was Larry LeSueur and Kenneth Crawford. Our distinguished guest was Admiral Richard E. Byrd.
At the end of the Second World War, the extraterrestrial now. To open the door to the future, you must forget all you know of the past. The master key of all mystery teachings and systems of initiation of the past, present and future, lie just a step ahead. The magic key for which you seek is the open sesame. That unlocks the door to a new and marvelous world. The path that leads to this hidden world is through initiation of consciousness and understanding of one's self. What lies ahead is truth. Welcome to the holy city of Agartha. The word Agartha is of Buddhist origin. It refers to the subterranean world or empire, in whose existence all true Buddhists fervently believe. They also believe that this subterranean world has millions of inhabitants, and many cities, all under the supreme domination of the subterranean world capital, Shambhala, as it has been done for thousands of years. Many similarly mysterious tunnels and stories lurk under the soil of Brazil as well. Brazil in the west and Tibet in the east seem to be the two parts of the earth where contact between the subterranean world and the surface world may be most easily achieved, due to the existence of these vast tunnel systems. The famous Russian artist, philosopher and explorer, Nicholas Roerich, who traveled extensively in the Far East, claimed that Lhasa, capital of Tibet, was connected by a tunnel with Shambhala, capital of the subterranean empire of Agartha. The entrance of these tunnels were guarded by lamas who were sworn to keep the actual whereabouts a secret from outsiders, by order of the Dalai Lama. A similar tunnel was believed to connect the secret chambers at the base of the Pyramid of Giza, by which the pharaohs established contact with these subterranean gods as well. The various gigantic statues of early Egyptian gods and kings that the Buddhists found throughout the Orient during their early explorations are believed by the Buddhist to represent the subterranean supermen, who came to the surface to help the human race in ancient times. They are generally represented as sexless. They were believed to be the messengers of Agartha. Buddhist traditions state that Agartha was first colonized many thousands of years ago, when a holy man led a group of followers who disappeared under the earth, never to be seen again. The subterranean civilization of Agartha is believed by many scholars to represent the continuum of the lost Atlantean civilization, who after learning the hard lesson of the futility of war, have remained in a state of peace ever since, making breathtaking scientific progress, far more advanced than we on the surface have ever known to be possible, uninterrupted by the setbacks of recurrent wars and fighting amongst each other, as our surface civilization continues to pursue. Their subterranean scientists are able to wield forces of nature we know nothing about, as demonstrated by their flying saucers, which are operated by a new, unknown source of energy, more subtle than atomic energy. Osendowski claims that the Empire of Agartha consists of a network of subterranean cities connected with each other by tunnels, through which vehicles pass at tremendous speed, both under the land and under the sea. These advanced beings live under the benign reign of a government headed by who they call the King of the World. They represent the descendants of the lost continents of Lemuria and Atlantis, as well as the original perfect race of Hyperboreans, or Nephilim, which are now believed to have once lived as gods here on the surface of Earth, and ruled over all of humanity in the ancient times. It is believed by many cultures around the world that during various epochs in history, the Agarthan supermen, or gods, came to the surface to teach the human race and help prevent many wars, catastrophes, and even helped erect and dictate religious persuasion since the very beginning of human creation. The coming of the flying saucers, soon after the first atomic explosion in Hiroshima, represents another such visitation, but this time the gods themselves did not appear among men, but they sent their emissaries. The Indian epic, Ramayana, describes Rama as one such being, an emissary or visitor, a visitor from the lands of Agartha, coming in an aerial flying vehicle, which is now favorably believed to be a flying saucer. Similarly, a Chinese tradition speaks of divine teachers coming on aerial vehicles also. The creator god of the Inca people, Mancocopac, is said to have visited the earth in the same way. When he created the Inca people, he arrived inside a flying craft, which came from beneath the surface of the earth. One of the greatest of Agarthan teachers in America was Quetzalcoatl, the great prophet of the Mayans, the Aztecs, and of the Indians of the Americas as well, both South and North America. He was a stranger among them all. He was known as an Atlantean. All indications seem to verify this claim, as indicated by his being of a fair complexion while they were of dark, his being tall while they were short. He was reverenced as a savior by the Indians of Mexico, the Yucatan, and Guatemala. This was long before the coming of the white man. The Aztecs called him God of Abundance. and the morning star. His name, Quetzalcoatl, means the feathered serpent, also known as a teacher of wisdom, symbolized by the serpent, who can fly. He was given this name because he came on an aerial vehicle, which is now recognized to have been a flying saucer. The Indian nations believe he originally came from the subterranean world. He taught the Indians the way of virtue and tried to save them from life's vice by giving them laws and counsel to restrain them from lust and to practice chastity. He taught pacifism and condemned violence in all forms. He instituted a vegetarian diet with corn as a principal food and taught fasting and hygiene to the people. According to the South American archaeologist Harold Wilkins, Quetzalcoatl was also the spiritual teacher of the ancient inhabitants of Brazil. The Egyptian demigod Osiris was another such subterranean god. According to Ignatius L. Donnelly, in his book, Atlantis the Antediluvian World, he claims the gods of the ancients were the original rulers of Atlantis and members of a superhuman race which governed over humans. Before the destruction of their own continent, which they foresaw coming years before it happened, they traveled by flying saucer through the polar opening to the subterranean world in the hollow interior of the earth, where they have continued to live ever since. Author Ferdinando Sandowski wrote in his book, Beasts, Men, and Gods. In his book he speaks of a vast network of tunnels constructed by a prehistoric race of humans, which passed under both oceans and continents, through which swift-moving vehicles traveled. The empire of which Sandowski speaks, he learned about from the lamas in the Far East, during his travels in Mongolia. In his book, The Coming Race, author Bulwer Lytton describes a subterranean civilization far more advanced than our own, which existed in a large cavity in the earth, connected with the surface by a tunnel. This immense cavity was illuminated by a strange light, which did not require lamps to produce it, but appeared to result from an electrification of the atmosphere. This light supported plant life, and enabled the subterranean people to grow their foods. The inhabitants of the utopia, described by Lytton, were vegetarians. They had certain apparatuses by which they could fly. They were free from disease, and had a perfect social organization, so that each received what he needed, without exploitation of one by another. Lytton claims that the Earth's crust is honeycombed by a network of tunnels, passing under the ocean, from continent to continent, and leading to subterranean cities in large cavities in the Earth. These tunnels are especially abundant in South America, especially under Brazil. Most famous of these tunnels is the roadway of the Incas, which stretches for several hundred miles south of Lima, Peru, and passes under Cusco, Tiahuanaco, and under the Three Peaks, proceeding to the Atacambo Desert. Another branch opens in Arica, Chile. It is claimed that the Incas used these same tunnels to escape from the Spanish conquerors and the Inquisition. It is said, entire armies entered them, carrying with them their gold and treasures on the backs of llamas, which they did when the Spanish conquerors first came. Their mysterious disappearance at this time, leaving only the race of Quechua Indians behind, is also explained by their entering these tunnels. It is said that when Atahualpa, the last of the Inca kings, was brutally murdered by Pizarro, the gold that was being carried to his ransom on a train of 11,000 pack llamas found refuge in these tunnels. Since the Incas who entered these tunnels were never seen again, it leads one to speculate maybe they found the inner cities as well. These mysterious tunnels are an enigma to archaeologists today. They exist in greatest numbers under Brazil, where they open on the surface in various places. The most famous is in the Roncador Mountains of northeast Mato Grosso, where explorer Colonel Fawcett was heading when last seen. It is claimed that the Atlantean city for which he searched was not the ruins of a dead city on the surface, but a subterranean city with still living Atlanteans as its inhabitants. It is believed that he and his son Jack reached this city, and are still living there today. The Roncador tunnel opening is guarded by the Murciego Indians, who are a dark-skinned, undersized race with great physical strength. Their sense of smell is more developed than that of the best bloodhounds. Even if they approve of you and let you enter the caverns, you will be lost to the present world, because they guard the secret very carefully, and may not let those who enter ever leave. This may have been what happened to Colonel Fawcett and his son Jack. The ruins of a number of Atlantean cities were found in northern Mato Grosso, and the Amazon territory, indicating that Atlanteans once colonized this country. Some years ago, an English school teacher, hearing rumors of a lost Atlantean city on a high plateau in this region, went to find it. And he did. But the hardships of the journey cost his life. Before he died, he sent by carrier pigeon a note describing a magnificent city he discovered, whose streets were lined by high golden statues. The English school teacher was also never heard from again. Stories of an ancient mystical city have been circulating since the dawn of time, from every corner of the world. In ancient Greece, in the mysteries of Delphos and Eleusis, this heavenly land was referred to as Mount Olympus and the Elysian Fields. Also in the earliest Vedic times, it was called by various names, such as Ratnasanu, Peak of the Precious Stone, Hermadri, the Mountain of Gold, and Mount Meru, home of the gods, and Olympus of the Hindus. Symbolically, the peak of this sacred mountain is in the sky, its middle portion on the earth, and its base in the subterranean world. The Scandinavian Eddas also mention this celestial city, which was in the subterranean land of Asar, of the peoples of Mesopotamia. It was the land of Amenti, in the sacred Book of the Dead, to the ancient Egyptians. To the peoples of India, it was the city of 7 Petals, and home of Vishnu, and the city of the 7 kings of Eden, of Judaic tradition. In all Asia Minor, not only in the past but also today, there exists the belief in the existence of a city of mystery, full of marvels, which is known as Shambhala, where lies the Temple of Gods. It is also the Ur-Damph of the Tibetans and Mongols. The Persians call it Ayana, land of their ancestors. The Hebrews called it Canaan, the holy place, while the Aztecs called it Mayapan. The Spanish conquerors who came to America believed in the existence of such a city and organized many expeditions to find it, calling it El Dorado, or the City of Gold. They probably learned about it from the Aborigines, who called it by the name of Manoa, or city whose king wears clothing of gold. By the Celts, this holy land was known as the Land of the Mysteries. In China, a Chinese tradition speaks of the land of Chivin, or the City of a Dozen Serpents. They believe it is the subterranean world, which lies at the roots of heaven. In the Middle Ages, it was referred to as the Isle of Avalon, where the Knights of the Round Table, under the leadership of King Arthur, and under the guidance of the magician Merlin, they went in search of the Holy Grail, the holy symbol of obedience, justice and immortality. When King Arthur was seriously wounded in a battle, he requested his companion Belvedere to depart on a boat to the confines of the earth, with the following words: "Farewell, my friend and companion Belvedere, return to the land where it never rains, where there is no sickness, and where nobody dies. The land of Agartha, in the subterranean world. Return to the realms of heaven, my dear friend." Today, many believe the Antarctic to be the true final resting place of the lost city of Atlantis. Recently, the discovery of a lost civilization of giant people found in the Antarctic, with the elongated skulls, has stunned scientists. The lost civilization were apparently flash-frozen thousands of years ago. Researchers claim these people may have been caught in a catastrophic pole shift, or seismic event that rearranged the tectonic plates rapidly, causing not only a deluge of biblical proportions, but possibly altering the original location of Atlantis altogether. Many cultures believe the ancient city of the Atlanteans will someday be accessible again for all of mankind. But it is said to only happen when Christianity lives up to the commandments, which were once drafted by Moses and God. Meaning, when the anarchy which exists in our world is replaced by peace and love amongst all beings. Only then will the doors be revealed to humans again. With the rapidly changing climate and the melting ice in the Arctic revealing an ancient past, one has to wonder if the door may be revealed before they choose to open it. Are all these ancient beliefs wrong? Or did they know something that we have now been made to forget? Could this be the veil spoken of in the Bible that covers our eyes today? One has to wonder why so many ancient cultures would have believed in a fairy tale. There must be some truth to why they all believed the same thing.
Alright, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry about how long that was, but I just really wanted to get that out there. Couple reasons. I tried to record it today, not that one specifically, the actual first one with all the facts and all about the Admiral Byrd and about the all the other planets, and the one with all the really good facts. The first one, not the second, and not the one I just played, and not the interview with Admiral Byrd. However, I do really like that interview with Admiral Byrd. I'm really well, I'll get into that after. But I was trying to record it and put it on my YouTube page, which was unsuccessful because I didn't have the sound on. And being that it's like 40-some minutes long, I just didn't want to have to keep redoing it over and over again because I already recorded it once for the show, and then I recorded it again with no sound. So I wasn't going to do it a third time. I mean, that's like 2 hours and 15 minutes out of my life had I done that. So I figured an hour and a half was enough, or an hour and 20 minutes, something like that. But it's one of those videos. You know, if you watch it, if you click on the link, it'll bring you to someone's page. I don't know who. I wish I could give them props for having it on their page, but I forget their name. But it'll bring you to their page. But while you're watching it, you'll see a symbol at the bottom. It's like a girl with holding a universe in her chest. And it was Universe Inside Me, I want to say, or Universe Inside You. One of those two that originally had it on their site. Now their site got, or their YouTube channel got shut down for a bit, and it's back up. It says that on their site, and I don't know when that happened. I don't know why that happened. I can only guess. But that video and a few others that I used to really like to watch aren't there anymore. Now that's another one of those places where you got to take everything, put your own perception on it, because they can sometimes add perceptions to certain topics. You know, they got alcohol, meaning drinking a demon basically coming in your body and all that, which, you know, there's a lot of facts that support that argument. And so anything you watch, you got to take your view of it, especially like the second one I put on here by Woodward TV. He's a great person to watch if you're getting into the fear-based stuff, because he does his research and he has his facts, but his spin on things is normally a very leery spin, a very dark. You know, he says the people in Hollow Earth don't want to meet us, or we shouldn't meet them, something to that effect. And, you know, he makes it sound a little dark and like they might want to hurt us or something to that effect. I don't think he's wrong. I think it's one of those things where you meet them when you're ready, or you can go there if such a place exists. Now, I'm not even going as far to tell you that that's real or fake, because once again, it's not something you can fucking prove. I just put it out there for a perception, a different perspective, rather. And I'm going to give you why I think that is important, especially with paganism and all that. I mean, that first video, she even said the line that Birch says so much: nature abhors a vacuum and looks to fill it, basically. That's one of Birch's, he says that a lot in his videos on his show. That's the reason when you banish, you have to invoke. The fact that she said that, and so many other things that were just, it really does have to do with magic. It really does. The last one I played was the most spiritual version of all this. Even Admiral's words, the Bird's words on that interview was pretty, you know, you could tell he was holding some things back, but at the same time trying to give as much info as he could. And it was pretty cool to see, because that's like in the 50s, I want to say possibly the 60s, I don't remember. But it's on YouTube. You guys can find all this stuff. But I'm just going to give you some food for thought here or there to start off, to maybe keep your interest piqued on all this topic before I get into the real spiritual stuff. But we heard from Greg Braden a few episodes ago that I put on here, and if you watch any of his stuff, he talks about CERN, how they smash the Hadron Collider, smashes particles together, and everybody's worried about black holes, and they like to tie the Mandela effect to it. And this is all stuff I looked at before I got into New Age, before I got into magic, witchcraft, all that shit. But, you know, everybody's talking about how they're making black holes. The more people focus on that, the more likely they are making black holes. They could be 100% making black holes right now. All I know is what I'm being told. Great Britain says they're making black holes, and they said, well, it's safe on paper and stuff like that. And I'm not doubting him. I think he knows what he knows. He talks to the people, that's the message they're putting out there. But if we were to say maybe they weren't making black holes, or maybe they haven't successfully made one yet, but let's say they put something out and it shows them actually making a black hole. Well, to me, the way my brain's going to work in my depolarized state, I'm not going to think it's bad. I'm not going to think it's good. I'm just going to think it is what it is. But then I'm going to be analytical about it, and I'm going to start thinking, well, you know what? We don't even know if the moon landing was real. That happened how long ago, and we haven't gone back to the moon? The one episode he's talking about going to Mars, but yet we haven't ever returned back to the moon. And one of the reasons they give anyways, there's a few, but one of the reasons they give was the metal they used for that ship. What we saw those pictures about, that shitty looking tinfoil looking thing that landed on the moon. That was the only metal that protects from, I forget the name of the radiation, but there's specific radiation that you have to protect from because it's very harmful. And that's the reason they don't go back to the moon, because they don't have that metal anymore. So we're way more advanced and have produced metals over and over again. You heard Admiral Byrd. He's under oath to not say too much, and he told us that there was fucking coal. There's probably a good chance there's oil, which means there's oil, and uranium, which means there's also radium. And how many things are there that he didn't mention? You know what I mean? Everybody's talking about global warming and how we're running out of resources, yet we just heard from a man on a TV show how long ago saying there's enough coal for the world forever found there. And what are electric cars really running on? Well, it's coal. I got powders here for coal to get my teeth white. I got coal for my fucking incense. I got coal brushes. Everything's being made out of coal now. There's an abundance of coal. So if you think that's a coincidence, well, you haven't been in this path long enough. But anyways, enough about that. But CERN making black holes, if they put a production on TV, it's just going to be that. It's going to be something we saw straight out of a movie. I can name you 10 movies right now that have really good effects with black holes, and some old ones that are, a little sketchy, but they got their point across. Point is, they could be just telling us that for whatever reason, for scaring people, or to get us to focus on it, to produce it. But if you look at that video or any of the videos of Hollow Earth, the footage that says it's attached to Admiral Byrd, which I don't know what it is, there's lots of footage of planets, especially on the one I give you, it'll show you all the planets, the holes at the bottom, the top and the front. But let's say they've been hiding the fact that we've been a globe and there's no hole at the top and the bottom. I'm not saying this is true, I'm not saying it's fake, I'm just saying if they've been hiding that for however long, if we come to a point where we can either prove it, we can either see it firsthand, or they end up releasing the information saying, there's a black hole, or however it ends up leaking out, or whether it's there, I would be willing to bet that CERN making black holes is going to have something to do with the fact that the Earth has always had a hole at the bottom and a hole at the top. Not only that, the first one, they said there's one in Tibet and one in Brazil, I think, and then there's been many other ones named throughout the other things I played on here. Point is, there's a north, there's a south, there's an east, and there's a west hole, and possibly more. Man, that sounds a whole lot like our fucking four fucking elements, does it not? Point is, I could see the whole CERN thing being, I'm not saying, because I don't know, I haven't done much research on CERN because I don't like to focus on that, so I sound like a complete idiot right now. But the fact that they are promoting that they're making black holes, making holes that could swallow us whole, the fact that they're promoting that, and the fact that they might have been hiding a hole at the North and South Pole and a couple other holes in the Earth, tells me that it's very likely that they may try to sell the populace that, okay, we're shutting CERN down because, sorry guys, we made a hole in the Earth. Should be alright though. We should be okay, but for everybody's benefit, no one's allowed to go there. This is why we've been in the North Pole and the South Pole, and no one's been allowed to go there. And it's just going to be what it is. It's going to be another line of bullshit everybody feeds into. And I hope, if they haven't figured that out or put those two together, I hope I didn't just give them a good out. But to me, that's the first thing I thought of whenever today I was listening to that. For some reason, CERN and the black holes came to mind, so I figured I'd throw that out there to see what everybody thought about that. But anyways, let me keep going here. just thinking about Roswell and UFO landings and all these crazy sightings that have been getting more and more and more. And the reason they're having them more, it could be argued. No, this is one thing I haven't done a lot of research on either, because I don't like to focus on that. To me, aliens and gods and deities, angels, demons, everything from the past that's not a human that's came down and taught us or whatever it is, to me it's all the same. It's a dimensional being that you have to be in a higher vibration to probably see. However, knowing what I know, feeling this video, hearing this video, seeing the information, all the old Egyptian glyphs and calligraphy and ancient writings, from the Sumerian to things in Ethiopia, obviously, Egypt I already mentioned, Mexico, all over Brazil, all over the place. There is, just like they have the pine cone showing the pituitary gland or the pineal gland, sounds like pineapple and all that. And, those things really help your subconscious mind. A banana looks like the moon. The moon's representation of subconscious mind. All these things are related. But they have things on the walls showing you how important different fruits and nuts, pine cones, the pineal gland. They have the same things with flying saucer, disc-looking things, spaceships, things coming from the sky. They have it all over the world. It's not a coincidence. And the truth be told is, it's, to me anyways, I'm not saying that there's nothing from outer space that could come in. However, NASA, the military, industrial complex, whoever it is, they seem, from the moon landings to now the Mars and space and astronomy, not astrology, there's a lot of focus on outside of our planet in space. Whereas, what is space? Well, it's not made up of our elements, or maybe it is all the elements together, but our planet, is it floating? It's moving around in something, but we don't really know what's going on out there yet. We're continuously focused on out there. And like the one guy said, that's why I played him mainly, is that there's places on this earth we still haven't fully went to, and we're being stopped from going there. I would totally go to fucking Antarctica or do some shit there. I would totally go see that shit. I'd totally try to go down to Earth. Like I said, I have my own perception of that, and I'll give you that in a bit. But point is, why are we being told to focus out there? Why is there so much emphasis of up there, as above, so below? What if we're really the above and there's a below us, and the below is actually more important than the above? Who knows? Or maybe there's all of these different, our planet's got a top level and a middle level, or all these subsequential levels. Point is the UFO landings and all this. It was said in one of the things that, I think it was Admiral Byrd that said they came out and tried to, whenever the nukes got dropped on Hiroshima and wherever else, they became concerned. And I've seen footage and I've heard from soldiers and all these things. I'm not saying it's real or not, how these beams of light have come and shut down and shot down, and rockets and nuclear bombs and all the above. So these people, or the inner earth people, come and fucking do something, and they get shot down. And there we got Roswell, New Mexico, and all these other sightings. And truth be told, in my opinion, all the sightings we're seeing today is our military, Canadian, American, European, whoever, is the military doing that for us, because they want us to think there's something from outer space that helps us focusing on the outer space stuff. But it's more likely coming from inner earth, or it came from inner earth. They stole the tech. And, that's why we get tech. When we got the internet, they've had something way more advanced this whole time. So there's all this talk about releasing 5G. I don't even know anymore, because I don't focus on that. If 5G is already dropped or not, I'm pretty sure it's already out. Point is, if they're giving us 5G, then they already got like a fucking 10G, or one that's faster, that's not as harmful. If it wasn't for other people getting the information on how to do internet things on their own and not being in the military, or these corporations making it for the military. There's been tests done with monkeys, putting monkeys on two different parts of the planet, two different islands, and they have no connection. Monkeys aren't one of those animals or insects that have telepathy, which, by the way, any insect that can hover, have telepathy, anytime there's a sign in nature of something we can do, technically, to me, we could try to figure that out, and it is a good possibility. We can't grow fucking wings and fly away, and that's not what I'm saying. The point is, though, monkeys don't have telepathy. They couldn't see each other. They had no way of communicating. However, whenever there's human influence on the one side, and the monkey either figured something out on its own, or a human helped it or left things there for it, While the other side, within, I forget the amount of time, but there was a time period, but the other side, there was a monkey there that started doing it as well. And these monkeys were separate, and some of the other monkeys that were further off into whatever jungle forest it was had figured out the same thing without even seeing the monkey on their own island. Point is, there's a connection. We're all fucking connected. If you're listening to me, there's a good chance you're trying to realize that and figure that shit out. But when the military had the internet and it was released to us, Birch talks about a pagan group that he was part of. One of his students had a similar thing, a connection there. And with that information out, the government has to release something, but they're never going to give us the top of the line shit they have. We're always going to get the lowest, shittiest version that can be monitored. And, that's the way it is. Their most advanced planes and shit that are probably really doing the damage. I'm not saying chemtrails aren't real, but what I am saying is that... Oh, are you okay? I'm almost done, babe. Downstairs on the table. They've been downstairs for a while, or in the cupboard. Point is, all the shit that they have, we only get the lowest part of it. So my point I'm trying to get at here anyways is that any UFOs seen now is probably drone driven, whatever, by a human body, a human person. And their best tech probably can't even be seen in the sky. I mean, I've seen videos of chemtrails without even a plane in front of it, planes disappearing, reappearing. Whether or not those are true, I have no fucking idea. Point is, we don't know what's going on. There's no way to know what's going on. And whatever they release to us is never going to be the full truth. Never. Not if they've been hiding so many lies, or we think they're lying. Even if they tell us that they haven't been lying and they give us the real truth, we're not going to believe that either, is kind of my point. But it doesn't matter what they tell us. If you're not focusing on their shit, it could technically go away. But I just wanted to hit at some of those things there. There was some talk about Hitler there a lot, and just a little bit of history about Hitler. Now, I read some of his book. I didn't read the whole Mein Kampf, My Struggle, but I read a lot of it. I was very fascinated, always been, with Hitler for some reason. And I never liked, I think it's appalling, and I was one of those people that had trouble watching the movie Auschwitz, and I had to do a project on Bergen-Belsen, which really disturbed me. So I know a lot about what happened. So anything I say about the information out there saying that the Holocaust had never happened, please no one think I am disrespecting any of the dead people that have died or whatever the case was, because like I said, I've done extensive research on this for school as a child, and I don't like even talking about it, but unfortunately there is information out there saying that hasn't happened. If you add that to the fact of all the soldiers that gone missing, and no, there's information out there how there's been a lot of Palestinian or a lot of Jewish people that were, forced. There's a lot of that footage. That footage is real with them getting the numbers on them and working in camps and all that. But a lot of them were being shipped to Palestine, to the New Jerusalem, whatever the case was. This is just, I'm regurgitating the information I've seen on YouTube. And I'm not saying I don't believe in the Holocaust. I don't know. I wasn't there once again, so I can't really tell you. All I can tell you is what I learned and now what I'm seeing. But when you add that to the fact that Hitler went missing, all his crew went missing, so many soldiers went missing, and the Mayans went missing, and the fucking that fucking Viking group went missing, and all that. Well, back then, those things are still mysteries to us. You heard that said. However, when it comes to the Germans, she'll say it's a mystery and all that. However, there is a body count number to justify all the people went missing. The body that was found when Hitler was found dead. He was found dead pretty out in the open when the soldiers came up to him. But even the soldiers didn't believe that that was Hitler's actual body. Okay? And then when they apparently found Hitler's body, they didn't release it and all that. And then there was a museum that had Hitler's body. Now, I don't remember how it was done, if it was stolen or if they allowed it to be tested. But I want to say it was in Russia. It might not have been. It might have been in Paris. It might have been in France. I don't know. But it was somewhere in that general region. I know there's a big difference between Russia, England, but somewhere around there, there was a military dedicated to the Nazi party, I want to say, or just maybe history in general, and Hitler's bones were apparently there. And when someone had the opportunity to test it, whether real or fake, now this is just information, again, could not be accurate, I have no idea, but when that information was tested, it turned out that it was a 80-year-old, or I don't know, 80-year-old, sorry, it was I don't know the age, it was a African American woman was what the DNA was. Actually, there was different the different bones. There was 2 different specimens that the parts, the bones mainly, were from. So technically, to this day, going by the information that I've researched, Hitler's body hasn't been found. People are going to say, oh yeah, he's dead, blah, 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 blah. Well, obviously by now he'd be dead unless he was somewhere where you can't die. I'm not trying to diminish anything. I'm not saying Hitler was a good guy. From what I was taught, he was a terrible guy. But I do know that he was on opiates. I do know that he was very spiritual and obsessed with finding some kind of spiritual connection. I do know that technically, anyways, there's information out there saying that German U-boats went to Antarctica and they never came back. I do know the Americans, and this is on files, that they went down there for quote-unquote a mission. Like that was the first thing I played said. They went down there for looking for resources, or it turned out it changed to a training mission that was just for exercise, for practice, and then there was casualties and a lot of fire and a lot of fucking damage, and they never tried going back. And eventually now it's a big peace treaty up there. No one can fight over it, no one can do anything, And what do you think that is? How come that is? How and why would they be forced to make peace and have a treaty over that whenever, I'm sure everybody wants that. But anyways, just some food for thought there, and not to relate it to the whole drug theme and all that, but Russell Brand spoke about how drugs would fill a void for him, for spirituality and stuff like that, trying to find a connection spiritual, and then now finding that connection spiritually, he has no need for drugs. And I feel the exact same way about that when I'm doing anything magical, whether it's talking about it, learning about it, researching about it, or actually doing it. It's enough of a fucking high, a free, natural high than anything I've ever actually done. But there's a link there, from, being, not to get onto the New Age stuff, but I'll tie it all together. That's how I like corresponding everything. But, being empathic, as I said, you take on people's energies. And not only that, it is hard to go out places and do things whenever you don't know why you feel the way you feel, but you just know when you get around a lot of people, you got some intense feelings. Sometimes it could be great, sometimes it could be terrible, and everything in between. So people like that tend to use drugs to cover that up, to deal with that shit, because, now they're not technically them anymore. They're on a substance making them act like whatever the substance makes them act like, technically, and, they feel better about it, and they do their thing, and all's well in the world, but then they get an addiction, So, to me, there's a connection there with Hitler, Inner Earth, and the fact that it wasn't him that created methadone, but methadone was created, and technically it was I want to say it was German, but it might have been Austrian or whoever they'd taken over that was part of the military. It was the doctor/scientists that created methadone for Hitler. Methadone's been around a lot longer than a lot of the opiate pills that we do have now. A lot of these are recent, and to me it's like, what the fuck? You know what this shit could do? You're making pills like it? I understand some people need it, but giving out fucking opiates for a fucking toothache or a fucking pulled tooth? I mean, are you kidding me? Broken arm, okay, I can see that, but wow. Anyways, and that's the thing, Russell Brand to me would be an empath, and I know Birch and Frater talk about New Age and say garbage and stuff like that, and there's especially when it comes to empaths and light workers and old souls and shit like that. I mean, a lot of people use that to have authority, to feel better, to start movements, to start spiritualities, to make them feel better about themselves, to talk down to people, using it being an empath as an excuse not to do things or not to show that they're actually full of shit. Oh, I'm an empath, I can't go out in public, sorry, I can't meet you or show you how legit I am. No, it's all fucking bullshit. But somebody like, Birch, he talks, one of the videos I played that he spoke in, he talks about he's a Kinsarian witch. It was about touching his pentacle. It was about the protection. If you go to pretend to touch his pentacle, oh, what a nice pentagram, he's going to know what your true intention is. He's not going to, he's going to see the feeling you're trying to put off, but he's going to feel your real intention. That's an empath right there. Bam, Cancer, water sign. Bam. Frederick Xavier talks about being a Pisces. I haven't played that video, but it's a very important one. It's where I learned how to do that magnetic meditation that pulls off and cleanses your energy. Maybe I will play it, but maybe I'll just tell you about it. But being a Pisces, if someone's a Pisces, they should be doing it, maybe not every day, but, you know, a few times a week, clearing their energy, because you pick up energy. He talks about the fact that he had back problems, and a lot of that was because picking up other people's energies. And, you know, he also talks about having Mars and Scorpio and all that, and stuff like that. But once again, he's a fucking empath. He feels people's energies. And what are these two guys doing? What are Birch and Frater doing? Well, they're fucking teaching. They're trying to make the world a better place. They're telling everybody that, you know, there's a better fucking way. Here's the better way, and do it. I'd say basically what I'm trying to do. And that other guy played Ralph Smart. That's what he's trying to do. That's exactly what he said. He said most empaths are water signs, but everybody has fucking water signs, all the water signs in their chart, just some are more prominent than others. But he's also doing the same fucking thing. He's also trying to help people. You know, he talked about rooting for the underdog, and, you know, people coming up to you, and, you know, let's say that person bumps into you and hurts your ankle, you're going to ask that person if their ankle's sore, something to that effect, you know, and that's how it is. I mean, people come up to me all the fucking time telling me their life. I don't know, just in line at the store. Oh, fuck, you know, my sister, my wife, my husband, whatever, you know, just ran. Oh, shit, I'm sorry to hear that. And they walk out, they talk to me for 5 minutes. My wife's looking at me in the car like, what the fuck, who's that? I don't fucking know. They just told me their life story, though. There's something there. I don't know what that is, you know, kind of the same thing with the Earth Angels thing. I really relate with that, but I don't like when people take those and they use it, they abuse it, and whatever. But that's my point. Ralph Smart, Birch, Frater, Xavier, myself, none of us are using empath. I mean, Frater and fucking Birch probably know they're empathic, and they just don't want to talk about it and say it because it's such bullshit what some of the people in the community have done. And once again, the people claiming to be those kind of empaths that claim that our authority, claim to be higher, better than other people, aren't real empaths. They're fucking fake, or they're infiltrating, or they're fucking hijacking, or they're trying to make it a mockery so people don't believe it. So they throw the baby out with the bathwater. And I'm here to tell you that an empath is a real thing, and technically everybody can be it. Truth be told, I mean, when I hear Admiral Byrd say a few things, I get emotional. You probably heard me in the background saying, God's bless, fucking, God's goddess bless, fucking Admiral Byrd. Well, it's because I started getting teared up. I started feeling an emotional response. When someone like that is speaking, when I see something, when I read something, when I hear songs or watch movies, that's the reason my music is kind of all over the place sometimes. I play emotional punk more than anything. That's a kind of a clue, because I'm an emotional guy, because I'm fucking highly sensitive to emotions. But I can listen to Katy Perry or Taylor Swift song, not feel a thing, and then put a different one on, and then fucking like Firework or fucking, I don't even know which one from Taylor, but, and feel the emotion she put in the song, and fucking like, wow, you know, and get teary-eyed, you know. She tells a story in a lot of her older songs and shit like that. And it happens with rock, classical rock, everything and anything. It happens with YouTube videos. It happens with cartoon movies with my daughter. My daughter is a Scorpio ascendant, and she gets so into those movies, like sad or fucking mad or happy to like a whole nother level. But I'm right there, fucking, if it's a sad part, my eyes tear up. And because of that, I fucking channel my manifestation, because my emotions are already there. I'm already using them without trying. So the one thing I can do is think about what I fucking want as if it's already happened, and say thank you, and change that, whatever emotion it was, into a positive emotion, positive feeling, and then fucking pull my manifestation closer to me, you know, or push something away, depending if that's what I'm doing at that time of the month. And that's probably why Birch and fucking Frater and Ralph Smart are all doing what they want to do. They're teaching fucking witchcraft, occult knowledge, alchemy, fucking ceremonial magic, and getting paid for it, because they're that emotional. And once they learn to use that emotion in their favor, used how to be an empath as a superpower, they keened in on it, you know, whenever they have the strong emotions and they use it in the right way and protect their mind and all that shit. But yeah, they can do whatever the fuck they want, and that's basically what I'm trying to do here. Not at their fucking level, never at their level, but, well, I'll never say never, but you know what I mean? That's it's all linked. All of it is linked. All of it is linked. We are all fucking connected. We are all fucking linked. I'm going to take a little 2-minute break there, 3-minute break there, and I'll be right back with more. All right, I'm back, everybody. So, my website or on speaker, and I think on YouTube somewhere, I have my birth chart posted. And if you look at that, just to keep going with, just to relate getting a little more detail on how an empath chart may look, or, this is not in all, this is not the only way your chart would look if you're an empath, okay? Understand that this is not the only way, but this is how mine looks, okay? So the first water sign, my ascendant's in Taurus, I said that, and then it's Gemini, and then it's Cancer. Well, my third house starts and finishes in Cancer, and then my fourth house starts in Cancer. I got 2 houses in that, and I'm right across from it. I also have the same thing going on, but that also means that my Aries has no house directly in it, and somewhere before or after Scorpio, that also happens again. But anyways, that's the first water sign, how it looks for me, and then Scorpio is my descendant. So technically that's and there's Pluto in my descendant, in Scorpio, and Pluto is in the 6th house. That's all in the 6th house for me, okay? Your ascendant is your conscious mind, and your descendant would be your subconscious mind. And the 6th house has to do with health, okay? Ascendant is Scorpio, Taurus. Sorry, my North Node is in the Aries, but it's almost in Taurus. It's on 29 Aries, okay? But that's technically in my 12th house, because my 12th house goes right to my ascendant line. It goes from fucking Pisces, starts in Pisces, and it goes all the way to fucking Taurus. That's what I mean by it skips, okay? Because Pisces is the last one, and Taurus is the second one, so it skips the first house completely. And the only planet I have in Aries is technically the North Node. It's not really a planet. It has to do with the moon. I think it's gravitational pull of the moon, or the top and the bottom of the moon, something to that effect. And then I have Mercury right before my sun, so Mercury is technically in my 12th house as well. Not in Pisces, but in the 12th house. It's in Taurus. But anyways, and I have Jupiter, that. Jupiter is the ruler of the 12th house. He's in the 11th house, but he's in Pisces as well. So in my water sign Pisces, I have fucking Jupiter, okay? That's a double water right there. Boom, boom. My moon's in Gemini, which is probably why I like talking about the subconscious mind and occult things. And my Jupiter is in the 11th house, so making online money might be expand. It's in the 11th house, yeah. And that has to do with some higher learning, some making money online. I can't remember all the correspondences there right now, but anyways, North Node is what you're supposed to be focusing on. So, being that I have no houses in Aries, and it's encompassed in the 12th house, and I got no planets also there, I don't have much fire in my chart either. I'm a very Taurus, earthy. I mean, when I get mad, but it takes me a lot to get mad. I'm an empath. I'm very sensitive. I take on people's energies. I want to help everybody, and technically, I can't tell you exactly all, because your North Node is kind of what you're supposed to be focused on in this life. Your South Node is directly opposite your North Node, so technically it's going to be down in Scorpio, in the 6th house, meaning, health, sex, death, transformation, occult stuff, all this shit I'm going to be good at, or I'm going to have a natural talent to, or I'm going to be drawn to, or this is what maybe not necessarily in this life, but in a past life I was good at that. I know all about that. That shit comes easy to me. Talking about that shit's going to come easy to me. It's not exactly what I need to focus on here. It's going to be where I gravitate towards and I feel comfortable doing. However, people think your South knows what you're supposed to be doing, but I mean, this is just going by the information I get from books and YouTube, astrologers, Vedic and others. But your North Node is what you're supposed to be focused on. You're over at your North Node trying to figure out what you want to do, your passion, your purpose in life. Which for me, which is Aries, right on the line of Taurus, and I got Mercury close by and Jupiter on the opposite side, and I don't have much fire, so maybe I gotta stop being walked all over, trampled on, helping everybody. I gotta help myself this life. How am I gonna make myself, healthy and wealthy, and but so that's just to tell you, like, where I'm coming from. I've told everybody about my grandmother having healing powers and all that, and how, like, I wasn't even into magic, but my dog had lumps, and she couldn't walk. or she had a limp, sorry, and when she came here, just being around me or being in the yard on the grass with the earth, who knows, she got healed. My wife had a type of cervical cancer that never came back and never will come back. All right, and I got a lot of little different things like that keep happening around me. Is that my grandma doing that? Is that just, sheer luck? Is that protection? I don't know. Is that coming from me? I don't know. But I'm just telling you what my chart says and what the experts say about what it says. But so there's the second water sign and the third water sign. Well, I already talked about Pisces, actually. So that's my 3 water signs. So, Scorpio in the health house, okay? The water in the health house with Pluto in there. And I'm not going to get into what Pluto means because I don't really use Pluto. Neptune would be the other water planet, I guess you could say. And I got him with Mars and Capricorn, so I don't know how that would be relevant or have anything to do with any of this stuff. Maybe my Mars is fire is passion, and it's in the 8th or 9th house, I can't remember now, and it's there with a water sign, Neptune, about your dreams or subconscious mind, once again, stuff like that. But yeah, I got Jupiter in Pisces, water. I got 2 houses in Cancer, 3 and 4, which I think one of those is about family or something like that. And then, I got Pluto, I got Scorpio, I got, it's my descendant. It has a direct representation of my subconscious mind. Or in another way to look at it, is your identity, is your ascendant. Taurus is what I think I am. I go around trying to project a big, tough, good-looking guy. I like nice things, I like brand name and all that. But really, I'm all about my subconscious mind. How do I feel? I'm very emotional. I take on energy very easily. Blah, 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 blah. So that's a little bit about my chart and how it reflects and is about how an how an empath kind of looks. How it would look. And that's the kind of thing that I think really affects the fact that when I listen to Admiral Byrd, I know he's not fucking talking shit. When I hear his journal entries, I know he's not talking shit. I've been feeling energy my whole life. I know my kids hate this part about me because they come upstairs trying to tell me a fucking lie that they didn't do something or that someone else did something. And I could feel the fact that they're fearful. I'm going to know. I can see them twitch. I pay attention to all the little details, the body language, the fact they can't look in the eyes. But I feel the kind of like what Birch said. It's not exactly like another intention coming up, but it's like another emotion. Like, no, you're not putting off the right emotion. I don't know what emotion. And keep in mind, none of this is exactly what I think. It is kind of what I think, but inner earth is there. I'm not going to go around saying inner earth is real. That's where we got to go and preach the gospel and everybody should do this. No, I'm never going to force my beliefs on anybody. And secondly, I like the correspondence. I like how inner earth is developed, and I've come up with my own idea of this hierarchy. Like, if you don't learn your life mistakes, you keep redoing it, and if you do figure out what you're supposed to figure out, whatever we're all supposed to figure out, then you get to move up the ladder, and I'm playing that into the inner earth. So, next step on our development, eternal soul, not individual physical, but if you can figure out this life, then maybe 800 years in Agartha is your next step. Or till you want to go higher. Doesn't matter. If you're Mother Teresa, MLK, Gandhi, Jesus, or even fucking Hitler. If we don't die in fear and with love, and because we know we're eternal, and even though we experience pain and suffering, we're all in the mind of the all. And together, we're connected. So we can't hurt each other, really, because it's all basically a dream. And if you really understand we're all connected, you won't want or do harmful acts, thoughts to anyone, or judge, because you know that harming yourself, your daughter, your mother, your wife, your dog, and more importantly, you're harming the all. By harming your enemy or someone else, you're basically harming the all, your kids, your wife, and angels and goddesses and gods. This is why everything is a circle. This is why I keep saying everything is a circuit and returns to you, or karma, if you like. Whether it's what goes around comes around, or your past life karma. It keeps happening because, well, first of all, it's a law and a learning, teaching technique of the divine, of your unconscious mind through symbolism. If you do something to somebody, you think you get away with it, well, then eventually someone's going to do something back to you. That's your mind telling you, see, do you remember when you did that to someone else? Well, this just happened back to you. Get it, stupid? Everything you do comes fucking back to you. Get others enter Agartha and Earth. If you don't get this, not just from love all perception, like fucking hippies or, what people think the New Age is and all that, but from trying to evolve and help all, from your family to your enemy to the planets to the demons to the angels to if you don't get to be a higher being. You don't get to go to a better place where you don't have to worry about your health or wealth anymore. You don't get to do that because everybody down there is in it for everybody. Whereas if you're just selfish and stay up here, you're never going to get this. Because all your actions aren't from a realization that by helping all, you evolve the all, and by helping other people, you get what you do back. Evolve the all-force creator. You are holding yourself and others back, and you can't evolve because you are selfish, only thinking about yourself. And by helping your enemy, you help yourself. By judging others, harming others, you judge and harm yourself. And all in Agartha are evolving collectively in a way that I don't comprehend, but that's what I feel and I know. But I am trying to comprehend. If you think you know everything, you can't learn anything. But if you know you don't know all, then you will be shown. And this is my opinion in how we get out of the reincarnation wheel, off the surface, 3D, the physical earth, whatever you want to call this plane, and we get to the next plane. And I like the inner earth because it seems possible and I really resonate with it, but I also understand it's not exactly how or where as I think and imagine. I know that there may not be an inner earth, but know that the concept of the place like this is the next step. We didn't just grow up to work till 65 and then die, and have to go tell a priest our sins, and we get to go to heaven or we go to hell. No, we are going to have to evolve many times in many different places. Like all the lessons you're going to learn here on Earth, it's kind of like one fucking lesson basically. Because if you go by the concept I said that you got to be in no fear when you die to get to the next step, well, it's really just one lesson. But it comes with the fact that you don't want to harm anybody, you don't want to hurt anybody, because we're all connected. The short answer is that what goes around comes around. What you do is going to come back to you. And the big answer is, technically by hurting the other person, you're not only hurting yourself, you're hurting your family, you're hurting the one who created us. And they're just shaking their head like, fuck, is he ever going to get it? We are going to have to evolve many times up the ladder, or stay on the same rung if we're too afraid or fearful to go up, basically, which is just another metaphor, right? If you're scared to go up a ladder, well, you're gonna stay on the same rung, basically. And those who don't die in fear, those who aren't scared to go up, are gonna go up, basically, or go down in this case, I guess. But too much fearful media or attempts to scare us and forced conformity is to push or pull you to the next step. If you are negative, then positivity will balance you. If you are too positive, the negativity will bring you neutral ground balance. Once balanced, you get to begin your depolarization and hopefully get into some kind of self-transformation, spirituality, or stop watching the fear-based media. But the fearful shit is necessary to push or pull you to the spirit and your purpose. From there, hopefully, you come into this understanding, because I can teach you, I can tell you, but unless you understand this yourself or get it, it's going to help getting this idea in your head, okay? It's one of those things where don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, okay? If you don't believe in Agartha, if you don't think what I put on here was real, that's fine. Like I said, I don't even know for certain if that's a real concept or a made-up concept, but I understand, like the Bible, even if that's a made-up concept, to make it sound real, to help us evolve, kind of like the Bible, is Jesus real, is he fake? It doesn't matter. You got to learn the message he was fucking trying to teach, the Old Testament, even with all that wrath and shit in there, you can pick out with esoteric knowledge what the fucking thing means. Because like this earth, like our realm, technically, if we're all in the mind of God, then all the shit that so-called God did in that Bible isn't real, even if it was real. Therefore, it's all there as a metaphor to teach you something. And so with this concept. So to me, it doesn't matter if Earth, inner Earth, hollow Earth, flat Earth, fucking all this shit is real or fake. There is some truth behind it. There's a lesson that's trying to teach us. The Bible is not working for most people. So this is the new way, or whatever, new age, whatever you want to call it, way of trying to teach the old stuff, the old craft, the old knowledge. Because there's so-called witches, magical people whom are successful, and they're hurting and hexing and teaching how to hurt and hex others. And I say so-called because they can be fake. Now, they're not all fake. Some of them are probably legit or whatever. Birch teaches how to probably do this as self-defense and, how to whatever. But he does it out of a place of, they harmed you, you gotta harm them back. You can't just take that shit. First of all, they're gonna keep harming people. So if they don't get the karma and learn the fucking lesson, well, and is there karma in you harming that person? I don't know, maybe. But if you really feel you should do it, well, then you should do it because, yeah, you're gonna have a lesson to learn. I can't give you that answer because I can't know that for sure. I believe that everything you do gets returned to you. Now, if someone's hurt you 5 times and you've never hurt anybody, well, I don't think by hurting one of those people one time that you're going to get the karma back whenever you've been getting bad karma prior to that. Anyways, there's a bigger spectrum that needs to be looked at. With only a few details, it's very hard to make an informed decision. But there's a lot of people out there who've hijacked, infiltrated, or whom are infiltrating, who are or paid by or influenced, deceived by real magicians. That comes back to the thing that I said about, the Pope, the Queen is all doing magic, yet they're preaching be a Christian and all this shit because they want all the Christians to hate on the magic people. So people stop doing magic and only believe what they want to believe. So their magic works twice as good. Who don't want people to have this knowledge or think by giving out false, unbalanced info. It will help. It'll help regulate and only permit those are able to know, sense real info from fake info and keep those easily fooled and gullible to try the ridiculous rituals and understand and believe their ridiculous knowledge and get no success, so they quit and tell others to not even bother because it's all bullshit. Or when someone isn't so gullible and they start seeing the shit and it's just so ridiculous that they can't believe it, well, they just throw the baby out with the bathwater once again and just don't do it. So, I think I have a few more things to hit on, but I'm not going to do it. I'm going to keep it for another episode because it's a little bit of a different perspective on something. But the last thing I'll just say is, I talked about empaths a lot. And, if you look at your chart and, you don't see any planets in there and the houses aren't really water houses, don't worry about it, It doesn't matter. You have water in you. You're made of water, our subconscious mind. If you start connecting your subconscious mind, you start taking a dream journal, you start meditating, you do these 3 aspects, your ritual magic, your affirmations, your recorders, all the things I told you, even start working with water, programming water and all that shit. You start doing all this. All right, you turn off the fucking TV and shit like that, because turning off the TV is probably the best thing you can do. Take back your mind. You're going to start feeling things. You're not going to be so numb and dumbed down. But once you start connecting the 2 minds, well, now you're connected to the subconscious mind. Subconscious mind connected to the conscious mind does have some setbacks, in my opinion, because I've always been an emotional person, but whenever I was into drugs and into the legal game and working and watching TV and eating bad food, I didn't have as many emotions. Some things would make me emotional, but I was cut off. And now that I connected it, call it an emotional block, fucking not being blocked anymore. The water works, come out sometimes. And I get emotional responses all the time. And it was only reignited from connecting my subconscious mind. So if you think you've never had these experiences, well, by connecting the 2, you're going to start feeling it. And anything with practice gets better. Not an easy thing to practice, but you start watching videos about it, you'll start seeing different things, you'll start relating to it, and you can program yourself. I'm not saying you want to program yourself to be an empath, because it can be hard to do things, but ultimately having power, feeling people's emotions, knowing when people are real or fake, as long as you have your protection up and you're protecting yourself and your family, you're doing things right, because that's the one thing I'll say about the New Age, because I'm giving a lot of props to New Age info right now, saying that it's kind of like witchcraft and all that. But in a sense, it's not, because at least witchcraft and ceremonial magic give you the basics and the procedure right. People that are in New Age stuff, if they're trying to connect or channel a spirit or something like that, and they're not putting up a fucking circle or having something on when they're, automatic writing or stuff like that, by asking a certain spirit to come through you or talk through you or that, when you're not protected and you haven't set guidelines and you haven't learned about any spiritism or any channeling stuff or anything to that effect, can be dangerous. Even meditating, I know a lot of places where it says to put up a circle, to have protection, to have certain stones. I mean, Ralph Smart, he doesn't give you all that empath information without even telling you, here's 4 crystals you need, and from there a bunch of sites did it after. Point is, this is still stuff, still connecting your mind. If you're doing anything, you're going on the astral. If it's just with New Age stuff, well, the astral, whenever you're doing your middle pillar or anything in the astral, it lights it up. So yeah, you're keeping things at bay, but they all know where you are. So that's why it's not good to just stop this shit. Because if you stop doing your protections, yet everything knows where you are, then you're going to be constantly under attack. That's why I stress the point to not stop this if you start it. Trust me, I fucking know. But that's the one thing I don't like about the New Age, because they didn't stress the dangers. I started doing things and it wasn't proper until I read the books. I'm like, oh my fucking God. And then at first I was like, oh, come on, that can't be real. That can't really be real. And now the understanding I have is like, man, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't tell anybody that wrong information. The first thing I started with was how to do these things and how to do the circle, how to do your fucking banishings. And I told everybody, it doesn't matter what you're doing, you should be doing a lesser banishing in the middle fucking pillar, and basically told you how to do it. And if you never pick up the Kabbalah transformation book or nothing, and you just do your banishings every day, at least for a fucking year, you're going to feel a hell of a lot better. And you got the right procedure for that. You may not know why you're doing it. You might not be doing it for the same reasons anybody else is doing it, but at least you're fucking doing it, and you're keeping yourself protected from your own thoughts, from other people's thoughts, from thought forms and all that shit. That's not going to do anything, not if somebody magic is throwing on you, but it's going to do a hell of a lot. But anyways, I think that's enough for me for today. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. But yeah. So anyways, check out Agartha. Look up that shit. Look out the empath stuff. It'll come with practice. It'll come with connecting the mind. So if you can't, there's a reason I'm putting this out there. And I don't care if it's one or all of you. You're probably resonating with this. And I have kind of a feeling that when you go down this path, it opens up, because your birth chart is a chart of how you make up, how your life's going to be. But when you start in magic and you can start programming your mind and this and that, you're basically taking over. There's nothing you can't do. You just got to ask or do the proper procedure to get it. So if you really want something, just do it right. Just ask. Do your information. Figure out what the old people did. Figure out what the people are doing now, how they're doing it, and then make it your own. That's all I'd say. That's what ceremonial witchcraft is. Taking everybody's shit, doing it right, and making it your own. Anyways, I hope everybody enjoyed, and have a great fucking night.